Smita.
Kiwa, good morning.
Morning. It's so good to see you early in the morning. Not so early.
It's not so early, but of course, very good to see you on a Friday morning. It's Friday.
I know. Oh God. And for everybody here, this is our second Gupshup, Coaching Gupshup with Smita and Kiwa. And we're really excited to have this conversation with you. This is honestly speaking something which has been on my mind and I thought I'll discuss with you at some point. So I'm glad it's come out in this way. So what we're going to be talking about today is bias. I know it sounds really heavy for a Friday.
Also, the word, as you said, bias, Kiwa, like, your jaw kind of dropped.
Oh, really? Bias. Is that better?
Yeah, that looks quite neutral now.
So, okay, let's get started. I'm sure you've already done like 10,000 things since morning because I know you get up at 4 and you start working at 4 and half the day is probably already over for you.
Yeah, few hours over with all the juggles of, sending kids to school and then cooking, family, and then work now. So all good.
Sounds good, I think.
Trying to balance, both work and family.
Yeah, I can hear your phone buzzing. I think you're getting a work call again. But we
Yes.
need to pause for our gupshup. So let's get started. So Smita, what comes to your mind? Like, let's start from that. I want to know, like, when you think of bias, what are some words, thoughts that come to your mind?
Kiva, I was just reflecting on this word and I was just thinking that, oh my God, like, it's such a negative feeling that comes when we think of biases and the Google, definition of the prejudice that we have. And we form kind of a, flavored opinion for something or someone. And I was just wondering and thinking to my own self as to where does this, all this stem from? And I was thinking that, when we have this either or approach, like when I have this either or kind of an approach, right? Like, say, for example, introvert or extrovert, yeah, good or bad, black or white. Uh, so this or approach kind of makes me think that does it serve, right? Does it serve us to for any good, like these biases? I mean, is it serving any good? Of course, these come from the preconditioning that happens with us as we are growing up and as a kid, and then in our growing years, the biases come from there, right? Like whatever we are seeing in the environment getting rewarded or getting punished. So I think those are the years where we start getting, each of us, right? Like I'm sure you must be having your biases. What are your thoughts on this?
I like the smile on your face as you say that. Like, oh, you must have got your biases. I'm sure there are many that you've also observed while working with me. But yeah, I do agree with you. Like, I think, to be honest, even when I said the word bias, there was a negative thought in my mind. And only once you pointed it out, I was like, oh yeah, is it always negative? And if it's not negative, then is it positive? Can it be neutral? I don't know. That's what is coming to my mind. I don't know if it's Friday that's doing this or if it's our conversation that's doing this. But yeah, like, I mean, what are good biases? Or is there something called a good bias and a bad bias? Like, is there something like that? What do you think?
I don't think so. I don't want to label them as good and bad. I think biases are biases, and if we are able to manage them, yeah, not the biases will come, right? Like I think you must be also seeing that it's quite unconscious. Like I don't want to be biased for something. Like it is very automatic that I become biased for something. Now, whether it's good or bad, it's again, I'm getting biased towards my bias by labeling them. But if I can manage those, I am sure.
Yeah. Like, as you were saying, I was thinking about this bias that I have about being action oriented. Like the moment, let's say if I see somebody who's like, you say something and the action is like converted immediately. I'm like, oh, okay, work is happening and this person is great, like it automatically somehow sets in, and maybe in some ways I also operate like that. But I don't know, I am aware of it at a particular degree, but I don't know where it's coming from, like, but it's there, like, versus somebody who says but doesn't act,
Yeah.
but maybe they're just taking that time to think through, to plan out and then act, versus, let's say, somebody who's, it could be so many things, right? Maybe fear gets you to do it faster. Maybe you're actually excited about it. Maybe your thought process and planning was actually quick. I don't know. Everybody is different. But yeah, I have noticed that this does play out, action, bias for action versus.
And this reminds me, actually, it is taking me back to the, again, childhood days where the teacher, right, like they had this, that's my observation, somebody getting good grades, like kids getting good grades, teachers consider them for every other, extracurricular activities as well. And kids with low grades, the biases, they can't even perform in anything else. So I mean, I'm just thinking about, the point that you made about your bias for, action versus pausing for some time and then taking action, and the bias that I see now, that, where as teachers, the bias is for kids who are like maybe, getting good grades and extroverts, and they are the ones who are picked up for everything. Like,
that's true. So where do these biases come from? It could come, I'm just thinking it could be from what's valued in our ecosystem. It could be what is always rewarded. Like you said, right? Like a child being extroverted means here, you get all the chances.
yeah.
What do you think? Where else could this come from?
I think, I mean, my thought was more around that, having that, instead of either or, can it be both and? Like, can it be replaced with both and, right? So it's not, for me, it's not about if someone is an extrovert and an introvert. And I'm saying this again because my bias was for that. Like, I always valued somebody who is an extrovert and, an outspoken, versus somebody who is, less expressive. I don't want to say that, that, and I don't feel anyways like that anymore, that, extrovert.
You're aware of your bias. So you are.
Yeah, I am, because I have, and I think that has evolved over a period of time, and thanks to coaching, I feel, that, that awareness about these unconscious biases just came, on the surface. So, and once that came, it's like, then it's like, you, once you're aware of your unconscious biases, that's like a gift, right? Like, that's a gift that you are giving to yourself, that's a gift that you're giving to anyone else. Operating from that state of awareness, I think it's that's the best thing that has happened after coaching, after the coaching journey.
This sounds so good, Smita. Like it's a gift that like I started by saying bad or good, like what is a bias, but to look at it as a gift, because I think with a gift, you can do what you want with it, right? If you want, you keep it. If you want, you give it to someone else. It's like, it's in a way in your control as to what you want to do once that awareness has come. Like in my case, if I have a bias for action, for instance, I'm aware of it in the sense as we are talking. And now what do I want to do with it? Right? Do I want to still continue to say, when I see action, it means that's the right way? Or am I going to also give a chance to people who are just sitting with it right now and they need some time because something else is going on in their mind? I think it just gives you that time to learn more and to become more observant of what's happening inside you when you this bias is like brought up like that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it's like, as you said this, it's like listening to more, right? Like, I think when we are operating from that space of bias, it is at that first level of listening that we know, which is about the downloading, which Otto Scharmer calls that as downloading, right? Like that's the level one. It's like we are just listening to our own selves and not listening to, you know, uh, being empathetic or the generative listening, as he says. So I think when we have become aware of our consciousness, we are able to and deal with it in the way that will not impact either, right? Like, okay, let me share this. I was just also wanting to share this with you. It's just coming up. So many thoughts are actually just coming up as I'm thinking about this, which I so strongly believe that needs focus and attention, like this word bias. Um, so when we have a bias for something, right? Somewhere in our hearts and in our minds, it goes that the person that I'm biased for, say I am biased for a particular team member, right? Because of some of their qualities which resonate with my way of doing things, I have a bias for that particular person. So in my thought is actually, by having that bias, I'm actually doing good to that person. That's what my thought is, right? Whereas I'm having a negative impact on another team member who I am not giving that much of attention, for example. It's like I'm impacting both these people in a negative way, and I'll tell you why. It's this person who I am having a bias for, they might also get biased in a similar way with the others. So it's like a network, right? Like I do this to you thinking it is good, and the other person carries that.
Interesting.
Gender bias is something which we think that, okay, in an interview a male gets hired because of the gender, or whatever, like why we can just take vice versa also. And when that person is sitting for an interview, the mindset, knowingly or unknowingly, goes for someone, selecting someone with a similar gender. So it's like it's just multiplying. What are your thoughts on that?
I was just thinking, then when does a bias feel like it's good? Like, it sounds like, oh, bias is being limiting. When is it you know, enabling, I think, in that sense? Let's say, even in this example, for the action bias that I have, or the example that you shared, maybe it's also helping, right, in some ways. But right now, it looks like we're swinging the pendulum to, oh, we should become aware of it and then act in a particular way. But maybe acting on that bias is also helping in certain ways. For example, meeting short-term goals, because I know that, okay, this person is quick with action, and the bias could be that let this person act on it first, and maybe that person will actually achieve the results faster, which is the need. I mean, I'm just trying to balance the scales by saying, when we say bias can also be good, or it can be enabling in certain ways, is this an example that would kind of suffice this, or?
I think it's more. I mean, that's my thought. I'm not sure if that's the right answer, or it's in the right direction. But it's more about the limiting beliefs that we say, right? Like, if as long as it is serving you and it's not impacting uh, your system, it's in a positive way, that it's allowing things to convert it into an action faster without you impacting anything else, and that means it is serving the purpose. That's great.
Yeah.
If in the process, like if it is causing some kind of a discomfort for someone else or something else, it's allowing me to take a disallowing me to take a right decision. So all these are like that kind of symptoms which needs a pause to think if that is serving us or not serving us.
I think that's a good one. Like, it's just about becoming aware and pausing,
Mm.
when you're, because otherwise it's just in the subconscious, right? So you're acting on it and you're not aware of what your actions, how they're impacting things in your ecosystem. So it kind of puts that break, and you're like, okay. So I think, yeah, maybe it helps in informing choices in some ways. So what are some biases? I'm curious to know that you've observed yourself, and it could also be bias about self, right? Maybe what we think about ourselves. I don't know, like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, I think the most important, which I mentioned earlier, was the introvert and extrovert, right? Uh, Solidifying in the head, saying that the introvert is, extrovert is superior to introvert. So that's a strong bias. Like, it's really about to categorize people in a particular bucket and operating from that space, saying that the extroverts will always be right, the introverts will always have shortcomings.
What, in your experience, got you to realize that, oh yeah, I have this bias?
um, I think it's just with having so many conversations and the coaching conversations, and realizing that uh, it's everybody's everything is in, we have to include everyone, right? Like, it's really not about somebody being less expressive and somebody being more expressive, so that makes the other person superior. And I think it's just through curiosity, like, by cultivating the curiosity to know more, listen more about the other, is where I started understanding that it's really not about um, superior or inferior, or it's really about how do we, even a person who and again, see, if I phrase it like this, like, even a person, so it's not like, both extrovert and introvert have their own strengths and own shortcomings, which has to be worked. So yeah.
Very interesting. I think as you and I are talking, I'm like, oh, what other biases are there? And I'm like, oh my God, this is a bias, that is a bias.
Wondering what are the antidotes, right? Like, these can be various biases at play. I mean, with the person, with the situation, with the there's so many things, like, India has so many regions and cultures and all that, and biases come from that space as well. And I'm thinking about my school days, to share one more thing, Kiva, here. So I am from Jamshedpur, and that's also called Tata Nagar. That's Tata Steel is very famous from there. And there we had schools with which is English medium and a Hindi medium and a Bengali medium. And I used to see parents of a boy child, putting them in English medium schools, and a girl child will either go to a Bengali medium or a Hindi medium. And my heart used to, like, cry out uh, for this biasness that parents used to show. So it's like, I don't know, like, what is the antidote for all this? Like, how do we now that the awareness has come, how do we kind of deal with that? So what are your thoughts on how do we manage these, or what is the antidote for biases?
I think one is for us to manage it within, but one is to build that awareness in the other person, right? And I think that's where coaching is something which is such a powerful tool. I mean, I'm not speaking about like getting every parent and getting them into the space, but coaching is something that can enter school systems to help build that awareness, right? Similarly, within workspaces, to help build that understanding that it's not about controlling your actions, but helping you to see that this could be something which is actually limiting your growth or the growth of people who you actually care about. Let's say within organizations, it could be with the team member that you actually want should grow, but your own thought processes is in a way limiting their growth, like the example you shared about, introvert or extrovert. So I think that's why I personally find coaching so powerful, because it builds that awareness for people. And once that awareness is there, it is up to people how they want to act and take the next step towards their development and those of others.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, being present in that moment, in the conversation, right? Like, again, when we're thinking of these coaching competencies, I can see all of that coming in play, at play. So whether it's about listening, whether it's about presence, how do And if we have a bias for a person or a situation, do you see that your questions get impacted? Do you observe that?
Yeah, because it's kind of, yeah, coming from a different place, right? It's
Yeah. I think it comes from the space of knowing, right? And that's why the questions are phrased in that particular way.
Hmm.
And I'm sure it is never going to serve the other person.
Interesting conversation for a Friday.
All right. I think, with that, we would like to end our gupshup on a Friday morning. We'll catch you up next week, Kiva, with yet another, powerful topic, and share our own experiences of, how are we learning from all this. Yeah.
Absolutely. And if there are certain topics that are on your mind that you are probably gupshupping about with your coaching friends or with friends otherwise, do let us know and let's see what we think about those as well. So thank you again, everyone. See you next
Thank
week.
you. See you. Bye.